Entrepreneur's Enigma is a podcast for the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, so the wins and the fails that we all face being entrepreneurs, and how we learn from adversity. Every week I talk to a different entrepreneur with a story to tell. I'm Seth Goldstein. Come with me on the journey. This is Entrepreneur's Enigma. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Entrepreneur's Enigma podcast. You know who I am by now. I'm Seth. I'm your host with the most. I have Brad Pedersen. Depends on who you talk to. I'm sure his mom would prefer you call him Pedersen, but he's heard all kinds. So Brad is a consummate entrepreneur, an author, a toy maker, a hustler, because he's doing two startups right now simultaneously, because he's a Canadian overachiever there. He has one that's called Pela, which is eco-friendly iPhone cases and gadgets that are eco-friendly for your phones and gadgets and stuff like that. He also has Lomi, which looks really cool. It essentially makes your trash not smell again. It's a composting robot, right?
Well, you made it sound really, really fancy. Composting robot. Love that. Yeah, look, it's an electronic.
It looks like a robot.
Well, actually, we turned it into a character because it kind of has this really sort of appealing look to it. It could be cute, exactly. And the name Lomi was actually inspired by WALL-E, the Disney movie, where the robot was kind of cute. So I love that you made that connection, because that's actually part of how that came about. Because loam is dirt. So let's go back and say, first of all, it's a machine that turns your organic waste into dirt, into actually a nutrient-rich dirt that you can use to fertilize your plant, your lawns. But it happens to look pretty cute. And the name was inspired by, like I said, WALL-E. So it was something that we figured that kids would really be interested in, because part of family meal preparation and at the end of meals, cleaning up the dishes is, where does the food waste go? And this machine solves that problem in a really mess-free, delightful way.
Oh, mess-free. Mm-hmm. Delightful. Then you can feed it back to your plants and get more tomatoes and carrots and stuff like that. So it's a cycle as you want to do. It's great. So kind of got these two things are, one's eco-friendly gadget things, and one's making life better with your solid waste. Not solid waste, that's poop.
Organic waste.
Solid waste, but like food waste.
Organic waste.
There's the word, not solid waste. You don't want to put poop in there.
Yeah.
I should be interested to see what happens if you put poop in there. You might make some really good fertilizer. Who knows? That's not what it's made for. And the FDA in America would put you out of business if you put poop in there. So don't do that. We already digress already.
No comment.
But you're also an author and a toy maker too. So let's talk a little bit about that. So what's your book about?
Yeah. So I was the real Santa Claus for close to 30 years. I made kids' toys. And, brands you're probably familiar with, Late Bright, Mash'ems, Connects, Tonka, Care Bears. They're part of a company called Basic Fun, which is still, around today. And I was a toy maker from the North. I lived in Canada, made kids' toys, and shipped, billions of pieces of playthings around the planet. It was
you can mix upstairs.
It was a really, really awesome experience. And so the book is really telling that story of how I went from a kid living in the prairies of Canada, had no business being in the toy business, getting into the toy business, scaling a toy company to crash and burn it, not just once, but 3 times, because I'm a slow learner. And eventually building this business that I was very proud of, and today goes on to still produce these iconic toys.
So your baby's grown up and mature, and you can watch it from afar, saying, "Wow, look at it go!" It's kind of cool. As an entrepreneur, it's kind of neat to see your baby grow up and then live beyond you, even like kind of just keep going. Are you still involved in that at all, or is it kind of like you're just kind of step back and moved on to the next thing?
Yeah, no, I'm not involved anymore. In fact, the book kind of tells that story as well. Is that I sort of secured this path from being a toy distributor to a toy maker, again, through a lot of adversity, like, doing it the wrong way. I tell people I don't have an MBA in business, but I have a PhD and DUMB from the School of Hard Knocks, because, I've definitely made most of the mistakes, maybe not all of them, but most of them. Went bankrupt once, and then twice, and then a third time. And then by the time that I got on the other side of that, hired a new toy company that started to thrive, merged that company with another company based in Florida, which I'm at today. And then that company, after 90 days of merging it together, got fired from the company. So the company that I co-founded got fired. So I had a
Eh,
sudden exit from business I co-founded. Fortunately, it was a soft landing, and it really just freed me up to imagine a new future. And by the way, that company and
yeah,
I are still in great relationship. It was the right thing to do at that moment in time,
yeah.
based upon what the company.
And would you have quit if you weren't let go? 'Cause I like asking that question because a lot of people are like, they have trouble quitting, and it's knowing when to quit, and sometimes it has to be handed to you
Yeah,
to kinda say, "Alright, I have to go. I have to do something else."
yeah, it's a great question.
We're gonna take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and get right back to the show.
And I would say I'm a pretty stubborn person, so I'm not sure. It may have been the only way I would have gotten out, but it has really been my inconvenient blessing, right? In fact, as I look back
Yeah.
on my life, I literally say like the best gifts have come wrapped in ugly paper. Going bankrupt, getting fired from a company I co-founded at the moment sucked. It was like a terrible, terrible experience.
Oh, it's the worst feeling in the
Right.
world, yeah.
But as I look back, I'm like, wow, I got freed up to start again and imagine a new future. And the point, like,
Mm.
should I have quit? Yes, I should have, because the other co-founder of that company and I
Ah,
were just oil and water. We just did not have our cultural value.
it's a marriage. It really is a
100%.
marriage. It's as much of a marriage as a real marriage. It's and if you don't get along, you probably should break up.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, I see that. Actually, I say the two most important decisions you'll make in your life is who do you marry and who you get into business with. Like, pick those
Oh,
carefully,
big time.
because if you don't get that right, your happiness, your joy in life is going to be highly correlated to making the right decisions about picking people that you can do a long-term
Mhm.
relationship with.
Absolutely. 'Cause I remember I was a journalist for 6 years,
Mm.
and literally walking to my boss's office and having a conversation with him and saying, "Look, I'm done." And he's like, "I know, I was about to fire you." Because he's like and I was making that decision, but, like, literally I was burnt, and I was making mistakes, and things were happening, and I would have been there it would have killed me if I stayed there longer.
Yeah.
And it was just like, knowing when to quit is so important, and it's underrated. Is knowing it's like, yeah, you built something fun, literally, you built something fun.
Yeah.
Like, literally, you're an epitome of fun, and but knowing when to quit and move on, and now you have a Wally robot, Lomi, and you have eco-friendly iPhone toys, and you're also a advisor for a bunch of companies too, which is kinda cool. Sharing paying it forward.
Yeah. Actually, just if I can riff on that for a second, because
Oh,
I'm in a
yeah.
business forum. And one of the members is Dave Liniger, and he's the founder of Remax. Just incredible guy. Like, talk about living life to the full. I mean, he has done it all. The guy raced NASCAR. He did 3 tours in Vietnam, hot balloonist around the world. Plus, he built one of the top 10 brands in the world, Remax. Everybody knows Remax, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we had this like jam session with him one night. It's kind of like listening to the sage in the room around a campfire. And literally, it was a
Mhm.
campfire in Minnesota. And question came up and said,
Wow.
"What's your greatest regret in business?" And I'm sitting there going, "Oh, some deal he missed out on, some thing he wish he would have got in or got too
Mhm.
late." And his answer, which blew me away, was, "I didn't fire people fast enough." And I was like, "What?" And he went on and said, like,
Mhm.
there's 4 people you're letting down when you know somebody's best buy date is past due and not acting on it. So first yourself, because you're not trusting them, right? You've now have to fill in for their work, because you're creating this codependency that
Mhm.
you have to inspect their work because you don't trust their work anymore. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
Number 2, you're letting your family down because you just took a bunch of time away from them so you can help this person along, assist, right? Number 3, you're letting their peers.
And when it's not benefiting anybody,
Yep,
yeah.
their peers down, because the unsaid truth in the building is that the person is not meeting standards and you're accepting it. And by the way, that's the new standard by which you're accepting excellence in your organization. So it sets a bad precedence. And then
Yeah.
finally, and this is to your point, you're letting that person down because they're
Yeah,
someplace that they're
yeah.
going to thrive. It's just not with you at this time.
Yeah, and, like, honestly, my editor in chief who let me go, essentially, it was kind of mutual, it was more him than me, but, he needed to let me go. We're still good friends, we stay in touch.
Mm,
Like he sees what I do with my newsletter and all that other stuff, and we stay in touch because he's a good guy. Like, there's no hard like you said, there's no hard feelings with your co-founder. It's just it wasn't right. You had to move on, and now you're on the bigger and better things. It was a soft landing, and it all works.
100%.
So,
Yep.
it's great, and then so and look, you have a house in Florida, you have a house in BC, you go to Peru and break your arm, which No, Bill back when he was mountain biking and broke his arm. So, but like, living his best life, even a little painful best life, but still,
Yeah.
I mean, you're able to live your life how you want, which is kind of nice. And
Yeah. And I mean,
it's that right. Yeah. Go
no,
ahead.
I was going to say, you summed it up so well. That literally, was my inconvenient blessing. Like, these things sucked in the moment. They were terrible, but they freed me up to imagining a new future and new possibilities. And I think as an entrepreneur, I've spent a lot of time thinking, like, what is the definition of success? Because I think it just gets watered down so much. But what does it mean to be successful or achieve success? It's just such a generic term. And as I think about it from a founder's perspective, I think the one word that always lands on me is freedom, right? The freedom to do what you want, when you want, the way you want it done, with those you want to do it with, right? Like, that ultimately is what we're striving to achieve. And all these like little, inflection points on my path, which make no sense looking forward. You have to connect the dots going backwards.
Always. Hindsight's always 20/20. Yeah.
100%.
Always 20/20.
100%, right? Otherwise you have a narrative bias about what your life's going to look like, which mine looks nothing like what I thought it was going to be. Again, prairie.
Oh, you never does.
Right. But I've achieved this incredible freedom to live a life of abundance and do the things that I want to do and be involved in the things I want to be in and focus on what I'm good at. So,
yeah, which is clearly mountain biking until you hit a rock.
Okay, just so we're clear, 4 days of mountain biking in Peru.
And then,
the last day, 200 meters left, I caught a little air in the wrong direction and hit some rocks. And,
I know but that's kind of a good metaphor to entrepreneurship.
Sure.
Is you can be going, and we're going to go with this because I'm picking on you and your poor broken arm here, but like, you can be going great. And then you catch some air, you're getting some progress, and then you hit some rocks. And then you're like sort of like your bankruptcies. You're like, oh crap, and you have to repair yourself, get up, dust yourself. Well, dust yourself off with one hand at that point, and kind of just go with it and say like, look, now you're one-handed for a little while till you get repaired, and all that. You kind of got to get up, dust yourself off, and keep going. And I mean, it's a great metaphor actually.
And let me.
You didn't know you broke your arm. You're gonna have a good metaphor to talk about, did you?
It's going into my next week's newsletter. I'm going to actually take that because here's the other piece of it that I'll add to it because Ernest Hemingway had this quote that said, the world breaks all of us. And then he said, and some of us are stronger in the broken places. So his metaphor was broken bone, that if broken bone is given the opportunity to heal properly, it actually heals back stronger than before it was broken. But if it doesn't, it becomes gangrenous and people can die, right? Like, that's why they used to cut off arms and legs and stuff back during the Civil War because
they know how to fix it.
Didn't know how to fix it. Exactly. So
now you're bionic.
Now I've got, I told you I look like Wolverine. I've got metal in the front end. But, exactly. And he's a Canadian too. Wolverine's cool. So,
Wolverine's very cool.
Look, I think I promise you my newsletter is going to have this story in it coming up exactly how you just laid it out and adding on to
it's so true. And I just kind of came to me. It was sort of like, well, that's a perfect metaphor because you catch air and you crash sometimes. Sometimes you don't, and you're a unicorn, you keep going. And it's a miracle that you didn't hit the rocks.
Right.
Most of the time you hit the rocks and then the varying degrees of breakage. So
I think there's very few that it becomes like as a narrative bias or a survivor bias, right? For the people who don't hit the rocks. The reality is that the vast majority of people who are in business should expect it's going to be hard. You're going to hit the rocks. You're going to scrape your elbows, break some bones, get up. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Like if you choose, you can use all of those experiences as a way to turn your struggles into strength, your wounds into wisdom. So that is the opportunity.
Love it, man. Love it. All right, so now on to the 3 questions. What is the best thing about being an entrepreneur in your mind?
I mean, I love to imagine the future. I think that imagining the future and going and creating it, like I tell people that, you need both a telescope and a microscope. The telescope is the vision casting piece. You're looking into the future to see how far out, what things could look like. And then you come back and use the microscope to inspect what you're expecting in terms of putting the building blocks in place to help you achieve that vision. So, just to me, that vision casting is such a powerful part of being an entrepreneur.
And then obviously, what's the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur? It's falling down and getting back up again, obviously. But
yeah, I think so. Uncertainty, right? Like, here's the thing. Like, I'm a kite surfer. I won't be for a few more weeks now, but you can't control the wind. You can just adjust the set of the sail, right? So
The
the
metaphor,
winds
yeah.
of life and business, they're going to change on you. And you can't predict that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you have to know what you can control and control those things, knowing that there's uncertainty. That's just part of what makes entrepreneurship worthwhile.
It's so true. And then what is the most important thing to carry with you all the time besides the first aid kit?
Look, I get asked the question like, when should an entrepreneur quit? And I said, well, there's two points that I feel like you should quit. First is if you run out of money, but more importantly, if you run out of hope.
Yeah.
Hope is, they say hope is not a strategy, but hope is certainly the precursor to your strategy. You have to be able to have hope and possibilities, because when you get knocked down, if you stay down, then you've truly become a failure. But getting knocked down and failing is a part of succeeding. And you just have to maintain the hope that, okay, this was hard. I'm going to learn through this. And I have the hope, the inspiration, the imagination that on the other side of this will be a better future. If you lose hope, you've lost, I think, the essence of life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. Well, Brad, hopefully you will heal just fine and come back stronger. Yeah, I'm sure you will. Look, you kite surf, for crying out loud. At least this is solid. Water's a little bit more dangerous in a way. So, But so everyone go check out Lomi, check out Pela. We'll have all the links in the show notes. We'll have the links to your book and all that stuff. But thank you so much for being on. This is such a pleasure. I know we had to reschedule a few times. You were out of the country. I had some kids sick and half days and monsoons where the internet didn't work. Like, oh, it's crazy. It's life. It's life.
It's life.
Life goes on. It's just a matter of rolling with the punches.
100%, man. Yeah, I know it has been like, the what is it, the duck on water underneath. You're kicking like crazy, but it's just smooth on the surface. You look like everything's great.
I know. It's so funny. Ducks are hilarious because they don't look frantic, but they are frantically kicking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man.
All right, Brad. Well, thank you so much for being on, and we'll see everyone next time.
Cheers.
That was a great show. If you're enjoying Entrepreneur's Enigma, please review us in the podcast directory of your choice. Every review helps other podcast listeners find our show. If you're looking for other podcasts in the marketing space, look no further than the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcasts.net. Goldstein Media hopes you have enjoyed this episode.